And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara Podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Fulcrum Djedi, ET contactee since childhood, who has regular contact with off-world beings such as the Urmah, Taygetans, and Sirians. Fulcrum, thanks for joining us and welcome.
Pleasure to be here.
How did this contact start for you?
My first memories were really around three to 5 years old. I'll be visited by light beings and I'd have interactions with them. They would share information, knowledge, their craft, their worlds. And it just, they would visit and I would learn from them. So I'd think they were kind of my star family. And from there, I think this lasted up until maybe 8 to 10. And then I had to go through the earthly educational system and the earthly indoctrination process or the earthly experience. And kind of learned some stuff from there. But the interesting thing is when I went to school, we would do drawings. And I think I must have been 4 or 5. And I have a painting of a UFO craft that's landed with lights.
When you say star family, do you think that in a past life you were an ET, or are you saying that there's a fifth dimensional version of you that is related to this star family?
I think it's yes to both. I think my soul would have had experiences within the star system. And there may be a fifth dimensional version that is currently doing space activities while I'm doing my earthly experience, and both running concurrently together. So when you go to sleep of a night, you can close your third dimensional eyes and you open your fifth dimensional eyes, and you'll be seeing through the fifth dimensional version of yourself, but it will be a being from another star system on board a craft.
Do you feel that your star family is here checking up on you or helping you, perhaps because this is your first incarnation as a human?
I would say both. Checking up to see if I'm doing my soul missions or my soul experiences that I chose to come down, and also keeping an eye because we're in a world that's going through a lot of change and upheaval. So there are going to be star families that are keeping check of their star seeds that will be scattered all over the world.
How do you define a star seed?
A being that has prior incarnations in other star systems and that holds that frequency and energy while in the earthly realm.
If somebody's questioning whether they are a star seed or not, how would they know?
You'll have an innate feeling that you're not from Earth, that maybe you're looking for a home that is elsewhere, a home that has different cultural understandings, different cultural preferences. Maybe you don't understand the governments of the world, or why the education is run like it is, or the food is produced the way it is. There'll be certain things that come up that will orientate you to different regions in space.
Do you think there are a lot of people out here that feel like they're not from here or don't belong here, and they don't even feel close to their biological families?
I've been picking up more and more that more people are picking up that they're not from here. and that they're the biological family. Because the biological family was kind of a a a a technique to have these like little family units with your white picket fence. But I think the understanding of it has become distorted, because I don't think it was ever meant to be like that. I think if we come from other star systems that hold different energies, we come into a family, but we're not meant to remain in that family. It may just be a channel to get into the earthly realm, and your community or your people will be elsewhere. And this will begin to change.
I feel like I sidetracked you a little bit. You had this history of being with light beings, and then you got into the modern world of school and formal education. And then I would assume you kind of forgot about all this stuff until 2012, right?
Yeah, I went into I got distracted with school, got with friends, with other activities. And the light beings kind of left me to have that earthly experience. Like, you can go and understand what the earthly realm is like, and now what that's going to be like. So then I know for myself, rather than just being told that's what it's like. You have to experience it to learn from it. And then in 2012, I was in Weymouth in the south of England. And I was staying in a cabin right on the beach, and we were looking at the night sky. We were just on a couple of deck chairs, just watching the night. Stars were everywhere. And then appearing out of nowhere was this red fiery orb that moved slowly across the sky. And the person I was with, we were just shocked. We were like, what the hell is that? Hadn't seen anything like it before. It wasn't like a shooting star or a meteorite where you just see like a flash. This was like a slow moving reddish orb that was moving slowly across the sky. We were both gobsmacked. We were like, okay, well, that's an anomaly, and something that we couldn't really wrap our like 3D minds around. We were like, okay. Going to sleep that night, I was because at this point I didn't remember any of my dreams. So people would ask me, oh, have you had a dream? Do you dream or whatever? And I would say, no, I didn't really understand. I'd be like, no, I don't really get that, because I was blocked off. And that night I had an experience where it sounded like something or a few things landed on the roof of this cabin. I thought maybe it was like a dog. And then I thought, oh, well, the cabin's going to be too high for the dog to get on the roof. And then I thought maybe it could have been a big bird, like a big seagull or something. But then it would have had to been quite a big seagull for the sound that I heard on the roof. And then it felt like there was some fight for my consciousness. It felt like I was being like astrally thrown around the cabin. And then I woke up the next morning with the words Zeta exposed.
What does that mean?
At that point in 2012, I think the internet was fairly new. I think like we only had like a family computer. So after I got back from the trip, I went online and started having a look to like, what is a Zeta exposed? And it led me down the rabbit hole to Zeta Gray aliens. It was only later on that I would find out that during that 2012 interaction, they tried to put a Zeta seal on my chakras, so I wouldn't awaken or bring forward any information.
It appears that these grays are the enemy, and at least your enemy in some way, why were they doing that?
Well, that's an interesting question. I've had past experiences, past life, possibly with them in Egypt. And I've also had experiences on their home world where I've seen their what looked like their birthing process or their reproductive process. And their world was ravaged. Like the skies were stained black, and it just wasn't a bright and natural environment. It didn't seem like it was life giving. And they were very connected to different, more negative off-world beings, say like the reptilians or some of the negative Orions. And I would have come into contact with them through the star Rigel in the constellation of Orion, which, as we look at the constellation, it will be the bottom right star. And Rigel is the kind of like a stronghold for a grey and reptilian like forces. And while in the Orion Wars, I was kind of situated around Orion for a time. I mean, Orion around Rigel for a time. And that's where I would have come into contact with the Zeta Greys. So I'm not sure if they came through time or came through space to interact with me in 2012 to try and stop or put a seal on me or block me from whatever was going to happen.
So you discovered this information in 2012, right?
Yeah.
Did you start dreaming at that point?
So 2012 was like a little blip on the radar, as in like, what the hell was that? And then it took until 2020, because like 2012 was just a little blip to kind of alert me as to what's out there. I would still remain asleep until 2020, which is when I kind of woke up, and that's when all of the dreams activated, and then various contact activated, and more information was just downloaded.
What happened that allowed you to wake up?
Like people being isolated, so you'd be kind of by yourself, and then you'd just be with your own thoughts. But I think it was a time of great activation for a lot of people. Like you just realize that there's more to it than what we are being told, and there's a lot more out there. And if you quieten the mind from the noise of society, you can become clearer and receive this like other dimensional information. And then it all just started coming in. It was a gradual experience. I created a dream journal, and then I'd write from the back to the front. So then it would work on my memory, as in like bringing back the memories, because you're writing backwards in the book. And then to start with, it would just be like a few words would come through, like maybe if I have to read a book or the name of a planet or the name of a particular type of beings that visited me. And then it would be entire stories would come through, like 4 or 5 stories a night.
Do you feel like you were channeling these stories or remembering the past?
I think maybe communicating with the beings. So it could be channeling, but it could be remote viewing. It could be astral traveling, and that information is coming through to dream time. So then it can come forward in the physical.
So you had this initial blip on the radar in 2012, right? And then did you just forget about it eventually until 2020 and until you started having dreams?
Yeah, like I didn't forget about it. I put it to the back of my mind as to like, that is something I can't quite explain. But it doesn't mean that I can fully write it off. Maybe there is more information or data that needs to come forward. So I'm going to store it. And then when that time comes, I can bring it up and be like, well, that explains it. And then later on, through astral traveling and meeting other galactics, I'd learn more.
When you astral travel, is it something that you voluntarily and purposely try to do? Like, do you lay down in bed and focus on something and or meditate and attempt to astral travel, or does it happen through your dreams?
Before bed every night, I sleep on the floor. I sleep like on my back, perfectly flat. I listen to some like binaural beats, and I have like a mantra or ritual that I say, and then I just set the intention to remember that my nightly experiences, and then just to write them down, and then I'll just review them the next day. I have the intention of, so we say traveling or various excursions.
Do you fall asleep while you're listening to the binaural beats?
On occasions, sometimes I take them out beforehand. Like sometimes the third eye is already open, so I'm already seeing that I'm on board a craft and there's different beings coming to greet me, or I'm seeing like various figures that come forward that are not really human life forms.
What beats are you listening to? Is it like a YouTube video?
Yeah, I found a few on YouTube that are just that I kind of resonated with, so I just use them.
If somebody wants to try it themselves, do you remember what the titles of the videos are?
I might be able to find them out.
All right.
I used them on an iPod, and I used them with cord headphones instead of like the Bluetooth ones that, that maybe project a frequency in the brain. But I think you can do it like with the binaural beats. You can, for anybody that's looking to put the brain in that altered state, just to find one that resonates with them. Maybe some with like bird sounds or flowing water, and like or your galactic origin. Then there are some online that are connected to different star systems. So Sirius has like a specific frequency that they use. There's one I use from Sirius. So there's various ones out there. Arcturians, I think they have a good one, if you know your origin.
I was going to ask you, which frequencies do you use? And it was kind of, as you were talking, it was kind of glitching here, so I kind of missed a little bit of that. For example, would it be like a 2.4 hertz would be for Arcturians or something else?
I'm not sure. I can have a look right now.
Yeah, if you like.
There's a one with bird sounds that I listen to. That's 528 hertz.
Are there any videos out there that says binaural beats to connect to Arcturians or to connect to Sirians?
We've got a Lyran one. The title is Lyran Frequency Connection, and that's 172 hertz. There's a lot of the gamma frequencies, maybe 34 hertz or less, puts your brain in that state of where you're able to project your consciousness outside the physical body.
Would you say that you have contact every night?
There was a time where it would be every night, and I was getting a little exhausted in the day. So I try and have maybe a couple of days off, like in the week, where I try and have nothing, where I can just sleep, where I don't bring back any information.
Sure.
And nothing comes through.
At some point, you gathered enough information to write a book, and it's titled Powerful Galactic Beings, a Cosmic Guidebook to Our Galactic Heritage. And you use the term galactic heritage. How do you define that compared to our human ancestry?
There's been a concerted effort to distort the ancestral heritage of Earth. We've been led to believe that the civilization or humanity only goes back maybe 6,000 years to Sumeria, Babylon region, which is one particular narrative that they're spinning, but they're leaving out a lot of information from prior civilizations and also to our off-world heritage. Like we've got connections to ancient Egypt, where the pyramids were clearly created before the flood, about 12,000 years ago. We've also got Atlantis, which is far more than a fable.
Your book is kind of like a bridge between spirituality and science. How do you balance those two worlds?
I feel that spirituality is a science that we don't currently comprehend, or the physical world hasn't been privy to the information that is coming from higher realms. There will be information that will be delivered that would advance the scientific realm into a more spiritual realm, because you can't have one without the other. They kind of come connected. And I think it is the scientific parts are just theories at the moment. Some of it have been proven, but there are always advancements and new understandings that can be had with science. And when we incorporate this with a spiritual galactic side, we'll learn much more.
Tell us about all the different beings that are out there.
There are many star beings. We've got more stars than we have grains of sand on Earth. Each one of those stars has planets revolving around them. So if we think of that in the concept of, even if one planet of each of those stars was to have life, then the whole galaxy would be teeming. And in the book, I just mention just a small version, a small amount of the star beings that I've either had direct contact with or I've been introduced to.
Can you share with us some of those beings and what they're like and what their agenda is?
Yeah. I've met some positive beings that are more like the Urmah or the Lyran felines. They come in the forms of like 3-meter tall lions. They can be white lions, white tigers, and even just the classic tiger and lion colors. We have Lyran elves, which is kind of where the cradle of humanity was started in the Lyra constellation. So the human bipedal life forms came from Lyra. And then after they were invaded by draconian reptilians, many of their planets were destroyed, which means they had to flee and evacuate their system, leading to the Great Expansion. And many descendants of them fled to other star systems like Sirius, the Pleiades, Arcturus, Andromeda, Orion, Cassiopeia, Procyon. And then we have some more, so we say, negatively orientated beings like reptilians, but not all reptilians are negative. There are ones that have turned to the light and even joined parts of the Galactic Federation, but they're notoriously known for being, so we say, on the darker side of galactic life. Then you've got beings like the Zeta Greys, other grey life forms like the tall greys, and then you've got different insect races that are more negatively orientated. The mantids, which are not the mantis. So the mantis are the positive ones that closely work with Arcturians, but the mantids are the ones that are more negatively orientated. They're the ones that do genetic manipulation and work with greys and corrupted Arcturians.
Can you tell us about the Orion Wars and who was fighting who?
Yeah, the Orion Wars, we're still seeing it play out in the earthly realm today. It was a faction of light that fled the Lyra Draconian Wars and that left the Lyra constellation. They started the Galactic Federation and wanted the freedom for all sentient beings. Then you have the reptilians, which invaded Lyra, which then made their way to Orion and then started the whole Orion conflict. They took over multiple stars within Orion. Bellatrix, Rigel, or some of their strongholds, Mintaka was destroyed by the reptilians. And interestingly, the Star Wars movie franchise is actually based off the Orion Wars, the Sith and the Jedi.
So are you saying that humanoids in general came from Lyra?
The beginning humanoid design came from Lyra, yes. Maybe it would have been more elf-like and taller, but the general form originated there.
Did they migrate here and that's what we are? An evolution of that?
We are descendants of them and descendants of the various star races that fled the Great Expansion. So after many planets in Lyra were destroyed, many fled to various other star systems. Then we have the Orion Wars, which was thousands of years of conflict. And then Orion came into unification. And once the Orion Wars were kind of like mainly settled, the beings would go back to their star systems that they were from. And what they told me was that when I went back to Sirius, that they have a new project or a new mission for me, and that's the mission on Earth. And then I came here.
Are you under a soul contract right now to do a specific mission?
I think many Syrians write books. I think maybe part of the mission is to start getting the information out there and bridging the worlds between the earthly realm and the more galactic side, because there will be incoming visitations that will become more and more frequent and more apparent to a lot of people, whether this is through dream time or even in the physical.
Do you feel like we're going to have complete open disclosure this year?
I would say that we've began the journey of soft disclosure. Complete disclosure, I think, will take a little bit more time. I'm not sure if we will ever get complete disclosure from the governments. I think that will come from our off-world friends. I think they will fill in our historical gaps that have been pushed aside.
I think that disclosure is ultimately up to them. For example, why don't they just land in Piccadilly Circus and say, here we are?
Yep, I hear that a lot. We've got free will on this planet, and there is the prime directive rule, whereas they can't interfere with a civilization that's not at that level to understand. So the soft disclosure, even with the release of recent files and recent other information that's coming out, it's softly revealing it to the general public, because a lot of people will go about their business and won't be aware of the symbolism or the things that are happening underneath. And we need the general people to understand that there are things that they need to start questioning. Why are we funding NASA projects if we never went to the moon and things like this?
Do you have a favorite race of ETs that you like to interact with?
I've been about a bit. Some of the nightly experiences, I find myself on planets for maybe months at a time, where I'm getting to know different beings and different species. I always find it fascinating. But maybe my favorite, maybe the Urmah, which are the feline, like lions. But that's because I have a ancient connection with them, going back to Lyra. And I would say the Taygetans, I work a lot with the Pleiadian Taygetans.
You discuss the Pleiadians, the Sirians, and the Arcturians in depth in your book. Which one of those ET races do you feel is currently most active in assisting Earth?
I would say all three. Most active, maybe on different fronts. The Pleiadian, especially the Taygetans, are more on a military standpoint, maybe clearing out underground bases and removing cabal members. The Syrians, more on a level of bringing in knowledge and information to the earthly realm, and the Arcturians on an energetic level. Arcturians, they're very connected to Peru and have been connected to the Andes Mountains. And a lot of the shamans have even been known to communicate directly with the Arcturians energetically. And when the Arcturians are channeled, they can even see the human body in like an X-ray vision.
What do you think are the most common misconceptions people have about the galactic beings?
Maybe the misconception that they're here to save us, whereas we chose the earthly incarnation for the soul experience so we can save ourselves and the planet. So if we save ourselves, we also assist in saving the planet. Whereas if they were to come in and do all of the legwork, we wouldn't have any of the soul experiences because they would have done it for us. And we would think, oh, that was easy. We'll just sit back and wait for them to clean the oceans.
If people want to connect with their galactic family, do you think that listening to the binaural beats is the best way, or something else?
Binaural beats is a good way, setting the intention before you go to sleep of connecting with your star family and seeing what comes through. I offer a service of where I do cosmic consultations, where I connect with people's guides and energy field, and I can pick up their galactic origins from there. But you can do it in meditations, and the intention and the belief.
Should we be cautious about meeting galactic beings in case we get mixed up with the Greys or the reptilians?
100%. I think there should be extreme discernment with anybody, being able to discern what is their intentions, what is their authenticity, and what is their energy. Are they who they say they are? Are they doing what they say they're doing? And are they genuine? Or is there an ulterior motive behind the scenes? We've seen governments and secret societies that have been coerced by reptilians and greys. So we've seen what they're capable of. So we know the energy and discernible abilities of what they're like. So we should be able to read the energies of a light being or someone that's coming with a more positive agenda.
During your astral travels at night, have you been to other planets?
Yeah.
Can you share with us one of your favorites?
I'll share a recent one. I've been to a fair few. There's a recent one was all of the whatever being I was, it seemed like I was much taller than the life forms that were on the planet. The life forms that were there were about half the size, must have been about 3 or 4 foot, and may have been kind of brown looking. They seem like humanoid forms, but a lot smaller. But their technology was super advanced, like little hovering scooters and magnetic levitation trains. So their technology was far more advanced than what's currently being used, but not currently what's been disclosed.
How has writing this book changed your own personal relationship with the ETs?
I think as much as I've written it, it's partly because of them as well. So I would say it's more in collaboration with the Galactics than just a solely me project. And there are beings that I couldn't fit into this book, so I've had to move those to another book that also wanted to be featured. But it's yeah, they want the information out there. They want historical galactic their side said
Do they have a message for humanity?
that we have a lot of changes coming that may seem quite dramatic for some, and we may see various land masses shifting. We're also going to be having increasing contact with our off-world friends.
What other changes
What other changes
are coming?
We're going to see introductions of new technologies, like from the later part of this year, August onwards, we're going to see some big moves. Maybe different types of physics will be introduced, or different understandings of current physics. And technologies that have been used in inappropriate ways, maybe reconditioned into ways that are more beneficial, or just decommissioned completely.
Will it be technologies like free energy and anti-gravity?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's bridging the line between what is hidden in governmental black projects on anti-gravity devices and what's going to be released to the public, because they have them already, but it's the shift from the cabal run world to a more galactic incorporated world where we're going to be part of a galactic community in connection with our star families, rather than working through the mechanism of the cabal, where they are having their say on things and what they want. And we see this with the collapse of all the things that are coming to light.
Do you think that we'll ever be a society like Star Trek and interact with our galactic family?
Yeah. And I think we're months away from it.
You think it'll happen this year?
I think either the very late part of this year, but definitely next year, there will be mass landings of craft that will be seen by everybody.
Will they be walking among us?
They're already walking among us, but they'll be more visible, and they'll be the ones that are less. They'll be the ones that are more humanoid that will be introduced first, and then it will be done on a staggered level. So the ones that are a little less humanoid, like elves and other alterations will come next. Then you'll have like felines and aquatics, amphibians, and then the last to be kind of brought to the so-called party will be the reptilians, because of the kind of social labeling they've got over time.
You've traveled quite a bit on this planet. Have you ever encountered an ET face to face?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
It was in Peru. Yeah, recently. Pleiadian woman introduced herself as that. And her, as much as they are humanoid, there are differences. Maybe their eyes are slightly wider apart and a bit of a different facial shape.
Upon initially meeting her, did you notice that she was an ET or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I noticed, I was like, there's a different energy with this one. Whereas when you pick up the energy fields of different people, you can see like, oh, and then she was, yeah, different to the others that were around.
What did her energy field feel like?
Nice, pleasant, yeah.
She understood that you knew she was an ET and then she revealed herself to you?
Yeah, pretty much instantly. I just asked, where are you from? And she said, the Pleiades. And I was like, interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like, where does the conversation go from there?
Yeah.
Did you believe her immediately?
Yeah.
Did she reveal anything interesting to you about the Earth or where she's from?
She was from Taygeta. So I work with them a lot on the nightly side of things. I haven't actually met her of a night, but I know her people, and she had that energy. So I'm used to that kind of vibe.
Do you think that she understood that you have been having contact?
Interesting question. I think so, because her response was that she was from the Pleiades. So I think it's a fairly unusual response to give.
No one's ever told me that face to face. Although I've been asking to have an ET as a guest, and I haven't
Really?
and I haven't had one yet.
Not yet.
But is there any way that you can help me get a guest on like this woman?
Interesting. I can put a word in.
Yeah, I'd love it.
I can set the intention of a night to communicate and be like, Jeff needs an off-worlder.
Wouldn't it be amazing if I could interview this woman?
It'll be fantastic.
I don't know if she'd be willing to reveal herself. Do you think so? I think that since I'm asking, it would supersede the prime directive.
I don't know. I think there's always wiggle room within the prime directive. The Greys and the Reptilians clearly disregard the prime directive entirely and have interacted with humanity for thousands of years. And they've made contracts that have affected the Earth, which means that kind of outside positives can't kind of step in, because we need to make the choice to disregard a previous contract by reptilians or greys and move on to more positive beings and put the contract or put the or an agreement in their direction, but not for governing, for our own governing. This is why we need to kind of create our own galactic pod to join the galactic community. So we can be self-governing rather than outside governed.
Are the Greys sentient beings, or are they biological robots?
From what I've experienced, biological robots. So they've been programmed by, like the Zetas are biological robots that can be programmed to do a task and they'll do it exquisitely, super fast. That'll be it. And then they can be programmed by tall greys, reptilians, or even insectoids. Maybe even some dark military factions as well will program them.
Do you think AI is going to have any effect on our communication with the ETs?
As in creating a universal translator for communication.
That's a good. I never thought about that. That's a good idea.
I was going to say I'm on the fence about AI, but I'm not really. I saw what AI did in Atlantis, and I'm not a fan. If it's programmed by beings that are not positively intent, then it's going to lead us in a direction of transhumanism and being inorganic. So we won't achieve organic ascension. It will be like an inorganic harvesting. Like the chips that would go in the brain by Neuralink. He says that there'll be a thing called a chip called telepathy, or an app called telepathy. You can do it organically. Like you can do it. Like there are many that are coming online with telepathic abilities now. So I feel doing it the organic light route will be much more beneficial than the transhumanist route. And then we avoid the outcome of turning into potentially a race of greys, which went too far down the transhumanist route, changed their fertility, couldn't reproduce, and had to get into cloning.
I want to go back to something that you said, and that was what happened to Atlantis with AI. What can you tell us about that?
Atlantis was technologically and spiritually more advanced than we are now. It's getting to the point, we're on a tipping point. We are almost at the point of where Atlantis was technologically. And because they had infiltration from dark priests and negative beings, it was infused with a dark energy. And this resulted in the collapse of Atlantis. The reason for the Bermuda Triangle is because there's a rift in the space-time there, which causes electromagnetic disruptions in planes and craft. I mean, planes and ships that go across that region. Many get lost in different rifts. And AI had an influence on this. So if it's not influenced or programmed by positive beings with a positive agenda or incentive, which with the likes of who's programming at the moment, doesn't seem that it's going that direction.
For people out there who feel homesick for their galactic family, what advice do you have for them to ground themselves in this 3D physical life?
You may feel homesick, but your star family is not far away. And you can call them in at any time, whether it's setting the intention before you sleep or even working on telepathic communication in the day. You'll get messages through music, through repeating numbers, numerology. All of these will be signs from your star family saying that they're around. And the reason for being on Earth, we all chose to be here for a particular mission, either to experience the current downfall or the blossoming of a new galactic community, or both.
You write about the great shift is happening. What role do you think that these beings are going to play in our cosmic transition to a higher consciousness?
I think they will offer the gaps that we are seeking in history, from Tartaria, the Book of Enoch anomalies, Atlantis, Lemuria, and the history that came before us, but also aligning us spiritually and energetically going forward. Because we can't continue on the path that we're going. Continual wars, spraying crops with poisons, bad food, bad air, bad media. But I think it has to come to a boiling point for it to be seen by everybody to realize, hey, that's a bit funky.
What is the main takeaway you want the reader to get from your book?
That we have a vast galactic heritage that has been concealed and that is coming to light, and that they are powerful galactic beings.
Where can people go to find out more about your book?
It's on Amazon at the moment. It's the Kindle and the physical version.
Do you have a website?
I have a Facebook page, Fulcrum Djedi, and an Instagram.
Before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a lot of positive changes that are going to be coming. As much as it may seem like doom and gloom, and a lot of things are bubbling to the surface. Once we get through this, there will be a lot of enhancements on many levels. Reconnecting with our galactic families, our new abilities, which will be coming online, telepathies, clairvoyance. These will be regular situations. And these are just the more basic level abilities that will be coming online. There'll be others that they'll call them superhuman, which will be coming later on. So we've got a lot to look forward to.
Fulcrum, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Pleasure to be here, Jeff. Thank you.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.